You ever had someone try to destroy you, and instead, they ended up praising the God you serve? That's exactly what happened between King Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful man on earth, and 3 Jewish exiles he personally handpicked, trained, and then tried to burn alive. Their names? You probably know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But here's what most people miss. This isn't just a story about a furnace. It's a story about a relationship between a tyrant and 3 men who refused to break. And by the end of it, that tyrant was on his face, worshipping their God. So what happened between them? How did they go from prisoners to palace officials to, well, almost ashes? And how did the king who gave the execution order end up writing one of the most humbling testimonies in the entire Bible? Let's get into it. Picture this. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, has just crushed Jerusalem. He's not just conquering land, he's collecting people. Specifically, the best and brightest young men from Judah's royal family. Daniel chapter 1 tells us he wanted young men, without any physical defect, good-looking, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. Among them, 4 teenage boys, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Now here's where it gets interesting. Nebuchadnezzar doesn't just take them captive. He tries to reprogram them. He gives them a 3-year crash course in Babylonian language, literature, culture. And here's the kicker. He renames them. Daniel becomes Belteshazzar. Hananiah becomes Shadrach. Mishael becomes Meshach. Azariah becomes Abednego. And these aren't random names. Every single one replaces the name of Yahweh with a Babylonian god. Hananiah means Yahweh is gracious. But Shadrach? That's tied to Aku, the moon god. Azariah means Yahweh has helped, but Abednego means servant of Nebo, another Babylonian deity. Nebuchadnezzar wasn't just changing their names. He was trying to erase their identity. He was saying, your God lost, my God's won, you're Babylonian now. But here's what he didn't understand. You can change someone's name. You can't change their heart. These 4 boys, they played the part. They learned the language. They studied the literature. But when it came to eating food sacrificed to idols, they drew a hard line. Daniel 1:8 says Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And because God was with them after just 10 days of eating vegetables and water, they looked healthier and better nourished than all the other young men. Nebuchadnezzar thought he was building loyal Babylonian officials. God was building faithful witnesses. Fast forward a bit. Nebuchadnezzar has a dream that terrifies him. A massive statue, head of gold, chest of silver, belly of bronze, legs of iron, feet of clay. He demands his wise men tell him the dream and the interpretation, or he'll have them all torn limb from limb. No one can do it, except Daniel. Daniel prays. God reveals the dream. And Daniel stands before the most powerful man in the world and says, Your Majesty, you are the King of kings. The God of heaven has given you dominion and power and might and glory. He interprets the dream. Babylon is the head of gold, but kingdoms will rise and fall until God himself sets up a kingdom that will never be destroyed. And Nebuchadnezzar, he falls on his face. He says, Truly, your God is God of gods and Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries. Then he promotes Daniel, makes him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief over all the wise men. And Daniel, this is key. Daniel makes a request. He asks the king to also appoint Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego over the affairs of the province of Babylon. Think about that. These 3 guys didn't even interpret the dream. But Daniel knew something. Faithfulness in small things prepares you for bigger battles. And that battle was coming. Because Nebuchadnezzar, he heard what Daniel said. He heard that his kingdom wouldn't last forever, and instead of humbling himself, he decided to build something that would. Daniel chapter 3. Nebuchadnezzar builds a statue of gold, 90 feet high, 9 feet wide. He summons every official in his empire to the Plain of Dura. And here's the command. When you hear the music, you fall down and worship the statue. If you don't, you're thrown into a blazing furnace. Now, some scholars think this wasn't just about religion. It was political. There had been a rebellion in the empire around this time, and Nebuchadnezzar was forcing a public loyalty oath. Bow to the statue, or you're a traitor. The music plays. The satraps, the prefects, the governors, the advisors, the treasurers, they all fall down. Every single one, except 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Some of the astrologers, probably jealous that these Jewish exiles got promoted. They go to the king and say, "Your Majesty, there are some Jews you appointed who neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up." And Nebuchadnezzar, he is furious. This is personal now. These aren't random rebels. These are his guys. He trained them, he promoted them, and now they're embarrassing him in front of his entire empire. So he summons them, and he gives them one more chance. He says, "Is it true that you don't serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Because if you don't, and I will give you another chance, you'll be thrown into the blazing furnace. And then what god will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Now, here's where these 3 men become legends. They look the most powerful man in the world in the eye and say, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your Majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your Majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." Let that sink in. They didn't say, "God will save us." They said, "God is able to save us, but even if he doesn't, we still won't bow." That's not blind faith. That's defiant faith. That's the kind of faith that says, "My obedience isn't conditional on my outcome." Nebuchadnezzar is so enraged. The Bible says his face became distorted with anger. He orders the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. He has his strongest soldiers tie them up and throw them in. And the fire is so intense, the soldiers who throw them in, they die from the heat. But then, Nebuchadnezzar looks into the furnace, and he sees 4 men, walking around, unbound, unharmed. And the 4th one, he says, looks like a son of the gods. He calls them out. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego walk out. Their clothes aren't burned. Their hair isn't singed. They don't even smell like smoke. And Nebuchadnezzar, the man who tried to burn them, he says this, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command, and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own God." Then he issues a decree. Anyone who speaks against their God will be cut into pieces and their houses turned into piles of rubble. Because, he says, no other god can save in this way. The man who built a statue to be worshipped was now worshipping their God. But the story doesn't end there. Because Nebuchadnezzar had another lesson coming. In Daniel chapter 4, he has another dream. A tree that reaches the heavens, providing shade for all the beasts of the field. Then a holy messenger orders it cut down, leaving only a stump. Daniel interprets it. Nebuchadnezzar's pride has grown too high. God is going to humble him. He'll be driven away from people, eat grass like cattle, and live with the wild animals until he acknowledges that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms. And it happens, exactly as Daniel said. Nebuchadnezzar loses his mind. He's out in the fields, hair like eagle feathers, nails like bird claws, eating grass, until one day he looks up and he says, "I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. Here's what I want you to see. Both Nebuchadnezzar and the 3 Hebrew men faced fire. But it was different fire. For Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the fire was external. It was a furnace built by a king. And God met them in it. He didn't remove them from the fire. He joined them in it. That's why there were 4 men walking around, not 3. For Nebuchadnezzar, the fire was internal. It was the fire of his own pride, burning him from the inside out. And God had to let him hit rock bottom, eating grass, losing his mind, before he would look up. 2 kinds of fire. One refines, the other consumes. The difference? Humility. So, here's the question I want to leave you with. What fire are you in right now? Maybe it's external. People are against you. Circumstances are crushing you. You're being pressured to compromise, to bow, to give up what you believe. Or maybe it's internal. Pride, anger, the need to control everything, the belief that you built your life, you earned your success, you are the head of gold. Either way, the same God who walked with 3 men in a Babylonian furnace, who humbled the greatest king on earth, is the same God who meets you in your fire, not always to remove you from it, but always to be with you in it. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego didn't know if they'd survive. They just knew who they served. And that was enough. Nebuchadnezzar had to lose everything to find the one who truly reigns. 2 very different paths. Same destination. The acknowledgement that the Most High God is sovereign. So which one are you? The one walking through fire with God? Or the one who needs to be humbled before you'll look up? Because here's the truth. God will get you there, one way or another. The question is, will you walk out unbound? Or will you have to eat grass first? If this story hit you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more biblical stories told with the context and depth they deserve. And let me know in the comments, what's the furnace you're facing right now? I'd love to pray for you. See you in the next one.